It's another Tuesday here on Stochastic at 3 p.m. And you know what that means? Time for the DraftKings Best Ball Draft. We're going to hop to the world of DraftKings Daily Fantasy, and we're going to do a Best Ball Draft. Of course, building a 20-round draft, full-point PPR with $2 million up top, $15 million in total in this tournament. Of course, when you draft on DraftKings, get your second entry free. And I'm playing one of those entries right now. Well, I guess not really, because I put so many teams in already. But I'm already in a draft room here. So on DraftKings today, picking in the 11th spot, there's been some news going on. In particular, some signings. Nick Chubb, a big news item. He's going to the Texans after passing his physical. Besides that, we have James Cook showing up to minicamp, that he's now seemingly going to be a hold-in after he wanted $15 million a year. The Bills are rightfully likely not want to give him anything. At a certain point, they'll probably reach a compromise where they give him some incentive-based deals, but I would still watch James Cook for potential ADP fall at some point, even though the news items are right now. People will see, oh, he's at camp. That's a good sign. He might be at camp, but not actually, being out there. Besides that, Terry McLaurin holding out. That's not a surprise. He wants new money. But the Nick Chubb one's one we probably need to talk about in more length. Before we do that, though, I do want to give my 3 rules of thumb here. Of course, Stochastic, all about plus EV approaches to whatever you're doing on DraftKings, on FanDuel, some of their best ball sites out there in particular. 3 rules that you want to hit when you are drafting best ball teams. Number 1, being aware of average draft position. ADP is what it's called for shorthand. You see it in all the apps. Basically, this is what people are drafting off of for the most part. And you want to be mindful of ADP because, number 1, it is a market-based price people are coming up with. It's the equivalent of a median projection for your DFS slates, but also for DraftKings here. Sometimes you'll end up in rooms where you get a lot of value, where you have guys who are normally taking pick 5, you might get them at pick 10. You have guys who are taken normally at pick 25. Sometimes they might fall to pick 40. That can happen a lot, and that really is what allows you to have unique teams that are not unique because you're reaching around. Pause. Not because you're doing anything weird with your lineup, but more so because you're just soaking up value that makes your team unique with a player that's better than people have access to. So that's something to keep in mind overall, is that ADP is really, people say ADP is a construct, but in reality, ADP is one of the most important things in terms of determining the actual value of your team in real time. Number 2 rule of thumb, stacking and correlating. Same thing we always talk about for DFS. You want your QB, the wide receiver, maybe 2. Tight end, same thing. And best ball, running back looks a little bit more appealing. Even if that RB isn't a pass-catching back, still could be upside for them because basically in best ball, you're trying to tether yourself to these offenses that are outliers throughout the course of an entire season. So stacking and correlating, a big important part of things no matter what, and trying to make sure that you're not taking unstacked QBs, even if they are a slight value. For the most part, you're not really trying to take that unstacked Joe Burrow when he falls, because the guy who has Jamar Chase with him, the guy who has T. Higgins with him, you're usually going to be a lot better off than you, both for the season and for the playoffs, which is when all the money is. And the last rule of thumb here, expected value is realized in week 17. So that money we talk about, the $15 million in total, that really gets paid out in week 17. Your top earner in the tournament gets $2 million. So you want all your best teams to be kind of reflecting that. More tournament upside, more stacking, more correlation, more all of that. In DraftKings, a lot of times the Q tag player will slide. So let's see if that happens here. I'm going to go Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry gives us a nice stable RB build. Henry, despite his age, played as well as any RB in football last year, was an efficient player in terms of being EPA positive, the run game and the pass game. And as we thought, Malik Neighbors comes back here, normally going at pick 11. I got him at pick 14. So a little bit of a value here, a Derrick Henry, Malik Neighbors start, our young, high upside receiver. Sad to disappoint the thumbnail that the Stochastic team putting some extra love and care into my thumbnails, which I appreciate. But we're not getting a Texan here. We're not getting Nico Collins, unfortunately, this time. Appreciate the chats, too. Let me catch what we got going on here. Mostly Nightbot. Stochastic run the big guns. Yes, the big guns indeed. Look at these guns, brother. Check. It's probably a really unimpressive flex, but I did walk a lot today. We got that going for me. It's so humid out here. Thankfully, I did not sweat all the way through my shirt, and you guys can see it on stream. Any Commanders we should move up at all with Scary Terry's discontent? No. He'll naturally slide a little bit in ADP, but they seemingly want to get him paid. There's been no worry. And like Dan Quinn did a quote yesterday, he was talking about like they just have to work it out. And Jaden Daniels said the same thing. Really, whatever team part of the team they've asked about Terry McLaurin's situation, they seem to know they want to take care of him. And as some of the local beat reporters have pointed out, which is a really important part of this best ball thing, paying attention to beat reporters, paying attention to the athletic reporters in particular, in the OTAs period of things, the mini camp period, training camp especially. Those are going to be your most important news sources here. And news really as important as a projection would be in the world of best ball. basically they've all talked about Terry McLaurin. He's been a guy that does all the charity stuff, does all the public facing things. Like, he's been a good part of the organization. They want to pay him. It's just, those things do take a little bit of time. So it is maybe not a great sign that he's not at minicamp, like probably a little bit further away than you want it to be, but I wouldn't knock anybody up. I wouldn't knock him down personally, even though I think the markets will knock him down a little bit. And frankly, it's deserved anyway, because his touchdown run good last year was so high that for me, with Terry McLaurin, like, I think he was a great player last year. He was somebody, if you guys watched my streams, he and Jane Daniels were one of the duos I had most out of anybody. It was actually my most owned stack at about 25% overall, with lineups with both of them. But for those guys, for McLaurin, how good he was, and he definitely left some big plays in the field that could still be there with Deebo Samuel. He got a lot of touchdowns that were not historically Terry McLaurin touchdowns, where he's usually the guy getting downfield bombs, getting, things that stretch the field more. Certainly gets some red zone targets, but last year, look up the number really fast. If I had to guess, he was over 1 last year. 0.9 red zone targets a game last year. I just think a few of those go away because he was getting slant routes that are not naturally his preferred kind of target you'd want to give to a guy like McLaurin, especially when you have a Deebo there. Even with Zach Ertz, felt like he could have gotten more red zone work than McLaurin did if things, variance sets in. I just think McLaurin's been overpriced anyway. So any sort of discount you get here, in this room, he goes at pick 25. To me, he should be priced more closely to... Oh, man. I mean, I think he should be behind Devontae Adams. Mike Clay's projections from ESPN came out this week. One of the big revelations is that Devontae Adams probably a little bit underpriced in terms of ADP right now. I think McLaurin should be behind him. I think McLaurin next to JSN would feel okay for me, though full point PPR, JSN might have a little bit of an advantage there if he does rack up targets like he did in the last season. And with no DK Metcalf, obviously that helps out a little bit. What is going on to the... Where'd the players' names go? They're cutting off players' heads. There we go. Okay, now we're back. We're on the clock as well. All right. So we can add more at RB. Go Kyron Williams, who is a strong RB click to me. Seemingly close to getting his extension. Mike Evans does make me feel a little bit better. And I think no matter what, we're going to get a good RB coming back. So I'm going to go Mike Evans here. For me, Mike Evans, a bit of a tier break when you have DJ Moore coming up next. Xavier Worthy, Mike Evans, no matter what in best ball, he's going to be going for 1,000 yards. I mean, he's got the records in terms of how long he's been doing that. So for Mike Evans, having that big spike week upside where he can put up 30 points in a game, being that primary end zone target, the downfield target as well, that's great. But also the fact that he is over the course of a year, probably going to get you 1,000 yards. As long as he's healthy, I think should be a good thing. Kyron Williams comes back. So let's go here. So pretty balanced start so far. Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans. No elite tight end in this build. James Cook here. I think now a time where maybe you feel more comfortable taking him at ADP. But I like the start. Again, balanced builds are really the rule of thumb for 2025, even though you can get away in some spots. I think in particular, in this range, you can get away with putting up 4 receivers in a row and then hitting maybe a QB or an RB. I think is one way you could do it on DraftKings. But 0 RB, the board just doesn't set up as cleanly for it as it has in previous years. And frankly, too, the ADPs for these rooms, for the most part, have gotten sharper, have gotten more efficient. The old dusty running backs sort of have that priced in for the most part. Maybe not the most efficient when you see Bucky Irving going to 29. Like, that should be higher. But, overall, these price tags for RBs are about as good as they're going to get, even though this room reached a little bit for few. Jency went a little bit early. McCaffrey went a little bit early. You make the case I took Henry a little bit early as well. Terry did the same exact thing 3 years ago, just as a frame of reference. Well, there you go. He'll get paid. I'm not really worried about it. But again, room's overreacting a little bit, knocking him down could be the case. In this room, though, Titty 7 here. I don't know if he's saying it to be like Titty or maybe his nickname is Titty, Tiddy. Though anything that rhymes with Iddy at this point, I feel like Diddy is ruined. He takes McLaurin at 25. I don't know if he's taking him at 25 because he's not worried about the contract thing, but even that feels like a lofty price. Let's see. Not that you can control this, but what is your favorite draft spot? Have you ever looked to correlate your successful lineups with that? I've been getting a ton of 11 and 12 spots no matter what platform lately. It's really a thing for me where, my pal Pete Overset always makes the jokes about the Influencer 101 and how, if you are a content creator, you get the 101 on stream. It's like a flex. And people also think that's a conspiracy thing somehow because everything has to be conspiracy in 2025 too. Speaking of, I'll have Lofty on the stream on Thursday. So we can talk more about conspiracy talk then. No, but point being for how that goes, I've been getting a ton of 111, 112s lately. I'm cool dealing with it. My favorite spot is still the 3-4-5 because I can get that Bucky Bijan start, that Saquon Bijan, or that Saquon Bucky start. If you're getting Saquon Bijan, you probably win all the money. Saquon, Jonathan Taylor, not a bad one either. And then you have a really nice run here of receivers you could take. You kind of see this guy, Haymack, hitting the same pocket here. We have like Higgins, Harrison, Sutton, JMO, Travis Hunter, McLaurin, McMillan, Devontae. A lot of guys you can get here if you start RB. So I would say my favorite spot is still the 3-4-5 range where I can get a Saquon, get a Bijan, get a Gibbs, and then get Bucky with that. I love that start. I've talked about it a lot. That's like one of my, whenever I could get it, I'm doing it basically. 11-12 spot, though, I'm just getting accustomed to because I'm getting it like very frequently. I am not getting RNG'd very positively right now. So it would be a rough nickname. It would be, but I don't, people have weird nicknames. That's one of the things you learn in life. I feel like a lot of guys spending early capital on onesie positions, usually not the move to go spots like here, McBride, Kittle. Again, I love McBride, Kittle as well. Played extremely well in terms of the target earning last year for a Niners team where a few guys, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel falling down led to increased opportunity for Juwan Jennings and George Kittle in particular. But you normally don't want to spend as much capital, especially with McBride. He took him early, took Kittle a little bit early as well. You're sort of compounding the error of not spending draft capital accordingly. And for him as well, only one receiver through 5 rounds. There was a very big cliff of the top 20 receivers. And after that, so you really want to get access to as many of them as you can while still balancing your team, obviously getting shots of those highest projected RBs and all of that. We're on the clock here. Devontae Smith comes back. It does seem like a nice little wide receiver pocket here. Yeah, again, pretty big ADP value in Devontae Smith, pick 59. He's normally going to 50.5. So Devontae Smith, wide receiver 3 with our neighbors, Mike Evans start. And of course, the RBs, Derrick Henry and Kyron Williams. This guy reaching for DeAndre Swift a little bit. So that's a move. Pickens hanging out here. I don't think it'd be a crazy click either. My favorite out of this group is probably Ridley. Jalen Waddle would give us week 17 correlation for Mike Evans, which might be the most appealing here. I'm not a big Waddle guy. Really not a big Miami offense guy this year, which bums me out because I like Mike McDaniel conceptually as being the sort of offensive genius. But the way that team ran last year, they just got away from a lot of stuff that created the big outlier fantasy production, in particular for Tyreek Hill. But Tyreek Hill had some good news this week as well. He's now catching passes on the sideline, so his health seemingly coming along a little bit better. The team so far, we have no QB, no tight end yet. We got Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams as our RB start. We have Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle. That's the start right now. A 2 RB, 4 receiver one. Getting pretty well balanced. Would be nice to get a tight end that fits in here, but I think we're off to an okay start. You guys, make sure you are playing on DraftKings. Let me queue up the board here so you get a better view of it. Make sure you are playing on the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app, though. If you are playing Best Ball, you go on there right now to draft your $20 Best Ball lineup to play for a share of $15 million. When you do that, you also get a second ticket to enter for free for another shot at $15 million. And the big thing about Best Ball is, number one, it's really your place where it's a pretty level playing field in terms of takes versus data versus knowing structure and all that. Would say you want to have structure no matter what, but you can hop in, have success with less entries. But number two is you also get your shot to win big without ever setting your lineup again. So that's a big part of it. That's part of the appeal here. You got the draft kind of itch scratched, then you have to deal with it ever again. If you want to sweat weekly, you can. You just want to check come January, you can do that as well. But check out DraftKings. Again, a lot of improvements this year, special deals they have going too, where they give away tickets when you do best ball drafts. Sometimes they also give away extra best ball tickets. And as the summer goes on, I assume they'll have some special deals on that front too. So go play on DraftKings this year. They're doing a good job. And of course, supporting this channel, doing the show. Links in the description too if you want to check it out. Link also in the description if you want to get my OddsShopper package. And if you guys sign up on there, you'll get access to my rankings right away, a lot of which have blurbs for players right now. I think I have over 150 right now that are done. I have to update another one there as well, but go check it out for if you want. I'm going to start to feed more things. The big things, get access to my Discord where I am dropping news about football throughout the day. It is a nice little OddsShopper package if you want to get on there for yourself. Link down in the description if you want to check it out and support the show. Of course, both things really support the show pretty well. And hit the like button too if you can. Show Stochastic that this best ball content is relevant. We're going to try to make sure that we're staying, keeping things exciting here. I'm excited to have Laffy on the stream, hopefully on Thursday. That's my booking skills that I'm saying hopefully because you never know, shit comes up. But I want to hear Lofty's takes. Would like to get some of your favorite stochastic guys on here. Eric Lindquist has a conflicting show. Want to get him on some point. Josh Engelman would probably rather murder himself on a stream. I don't think he can't say those words. He'd rather do something to himself. I don't know, do a lot of something to himself rather than talk about NFL in June. So probably not Josh, but give me your requests too if you want to get some guys in. Best ball is why I quit Dynasty. Hate the weekly in-season grind. I agree. I mean, the hard part, I think, of a lot of leagues, and it certainly happened with my high school friends league where we lost some guys over the course of years and you lose a few more. And it's like, well, I don't want to keep doing the heavy lifting of getting people on board to do this. I think if we had a best ball format, it probably would have been better received because it's just less effort for the people involved. So best ball to me is like kind of the best of both worlds where you get your DFS itch scratched a little bit with the stacking and the correlation. But also, you do get the shot at a big payout at the end without having to do anything else in between. I do want to make sure we're getting an elite QB in. I love Baker Mayfield. He was a top scorer last year over and over again. We have the Mike Evans bet, so Baker Mayfield, an easy click for me. A very nice article in The Athletic today talking about Baker Mayfield. We'll really talk mostly about Chris Godwin, but talk about the fact that Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, basically like they treat each other like brothers. So that's part of why Chris Godwin came back to Tampa Bay. The second part of that was that Baker Mayfield, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, K. Dotton, and then a few of the linemen. They all hang out with their wives, play games together. They have a really tight-knit community. And you kind of can see it with the way Tampa Bay plays with that offense that is, fairly sharing, fairly well-balanced. So I like Tampa Bay a lot. And that article, too, I think is worth a read if you just want to kind of get a look at – trying to think here. I love Darnell Mooney. We got some nice discounts at RB, though. This is a 20-pick discount on David Montgomery, so I'm just going to add him to our RB room. We have a Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, David Montgomery start. Could have added that fifth receiver in at this point. I would have loved to have gotten Darnell Mooney there. Just think he's undervalued on DraftKings going to the 96 spot. But when you have 20 spots for Montgomery, you got to take that. That's too much value. Yeah. I wouldn't say DK is apparently for the idiots. I will say in general, DraftKings drafts this year do feel slightly sharper than they have in years past, where there have been times in other DraftKings rooms where I would have probably 150, 160 picks of ADP value by the end of it all because people were just passing up players over and over again for no particular reason. That has not happened to me so far. And I think this is my 15th draft of the year so far on DraftKings, a lot of which are being done on stream. So I haven't seen it be as, opposite as sharp, as soft, as square this year, but sometimes that'll happen. And yeah, to me, if you get David Montgomery, 20 spots after ADP, just absorb it. Team gets more unique for it. That's how it goes. Let's see. This is not a nickname. Spags already is a nickname. You need to call me Dirt Spag. It's pretty aggressive. Lofty shot JFK for people that don't know. There we go. That's good to know. He was in Dealey Plaza. I'm sure. Made a real mess of things. There's a chat. Oh, Brent's in the room here. Jumped in, saw you in here, thought you might be streaming. I'm a 10. There we go. Shout out Brent. I was in the room here and didn't try to get in. Sometimes there are people out there that love to get their names on stream because I don't know why. But I get it. I guess it's people want to be a part of things. Yeah, if you're in here, hopefully you're not doing anything bad. You didn't take 2 elite QBs and 2 elite tight ends, Brent, so you're crushing by my standards. Shout out all you guys hanging out live. Do appreciate it. Again, hit that like button here. Show Stochastic that Best Ball is a good addition to this DFS channel where obviously guys every single day doing great work in the MLB DFS streets, NBA DFS. Of course, we got another finals game coming up tomorrow, so you'll get that run of content too. The Best Ball, I will hopefully keep being here all summer 2 times a week. We'll try to make it fun, especially as the summer gets going a little bit more and hopefully a little bit easier to get guests who are ready to talk football because not everybody wants to talk football in June, which, shame on them, right? Not shame on me. Nick Chubb, I didn't talk about this. We should talk a little bit about Nick Chubb. So for Nick Chubb, the main thing that I saw with his numbers last year, just not the same dude, which you'd expect at his age, coming off the injuries are fairly catastrophic. But a negative 0.18 EPA per rush, not good. One thing about Nick Chubb in the past that was always a little bit odd was that people thought Nick Chubb was a bad pass catcher. He always was a guy, though, that if he got the ball fairly efficient. Last year, not the case either. Negative 1.4 EPA per target. So you're talking about the worst of Tank Bigsby his rookie year, those kind of numbers. Nick Chubb also a 9.8% avoided tackle rate. You can live with that if you're getting a Joe Mixon level of volume, but for Chubb, it's not a great sign. Did get 2.3 red zone opportunities a game. That's a positive, but didn't do a whole lot with it. So for Nick Chubb, I think his biggest utility is that when Joe Mixon is tired, if Joe Mixon is also hurt, Nick Chubb's probably that contingent value, that kind of bruiser back that the Texans seem to like. Obviously, they brought in Mixon, they've paid him. That's enough of an indicator for that. And it doesn't seem like it's changing with the new coaching staff coming in particular, new offensive coordinator for them. That said, for Nick Chubb, I think people are probably a little bit overexcited. If I had to guess, he's mostly a contingent value play. He'll have upside for sure, and I think has some touchdown ability game to game. Again, when Mixon is gassed, I think they'll bring him in. But I'm not really sold that Nick Chubb's gonna be a game changer for that offense. Justin Fields here, 10 pick difference in ADP. Happy to take Fields, would definitely play a little bit better for me with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, I really think in that Jets offense, he's your most likely receiver that be able to hit week to week. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of volume to go around there. Happy to take Mason Taylor, the rookie, coming in for free because he's likely walking into a starting job. But he was a shitty targeter at LSU, and usually bad targeters in college don't suddenly become great ones in the pros. I would have taken Tyrone Tracy perhaps if he'd come back, but that's not the case. We've got our 2 QBs. We need to add another receiver here, I think. Jaden Higgins would give us a Houston guy, and we do have Houston in the thumbnail. Rashad Bateman, I do like a little bit more than Higgins, even though the ADPs are pretty much flat at this point. I'm going to go Bateman here. No issue with Jaden Higgins. Think he is a good outside receiver, even though I think that he and Nico Collins do things a little bit too similarly. But I think Bateman, for me, we saw him spike a good amount last year. Got a new deal again this offseason, another contract extension for Bateman. That's a positive. Probably going to lose some touchdowns to DeAndre Hopkins a little bit. And frankly, Zay Flowers and his evolution as a player could hurt Bateman's upside a little bit. But in terms of spike weeks, game to game and all that, I do think that there'll be some opportunity for Bateman to have big upside. So him as wide receiver 5 to me, a player that I go to pretty frequently. But the team so far, we've got Baker Mayfield, Derrick Henry. And he does correlate with Derrick Henry to some extent. Kyron Williams, Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle here. So we have some Tampa Bay, Miami correlation for week 17. David Montgomery, Justin Fields, Rashad Bateman. For Fields, I think it'll be natural to try to get the tight end later on. We could also add on guys like your Josh Reynoldses, your rookie Arian Smith, who's a burner for the Jets, but probably not a guy who's going to earn a ton of targets. You do still have Alan Lazard there technically, though doesn't feel like he's maybe the longest for the world. But we have some late Jets we can take is really the point here if we want to stack up Justin Fields. Though frankly, stacking up Justin Fields, I don't know if you have to. Gajeski probably, as a guest, would be cool. It's weird. Like, I don't think I've ever done a show with Gajeski, so I certainly will keep that in mind. That's if he wants to do it, I would love to have him on. I think he does a great job when he does shows with Eric. I'll always watch them on Live Before Lock when I'm building my lineups on Sundays. So love Gajeski's work. I feel like I don't know if he loves my shtick. If he doesn't love Eric's shtick, like my shtick is at a level beyond that shtick. So that's where we don't want to scare him. We don't want to traumatize Matt Gajeski. That's not the hope. They'll tell you what, even if he were traumatized by the amount of shtick that I do, he probably wouldn't sell it because I think that's one of his skills in life. No, this is not a one-time thing. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Stochastic, testing some different thumbnails. Hopefully we'll get some better click-through rate on stuff. But yes, the goal here is to see this through all summer as long as, DraftKings and Stochastic are aligned on that end of things. So Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. And again, we'll start to get some more guests going once we're in the heat of things is my hope. But if not, you got me here, and I do my best to make sure I'm up on everything. Really at a borderline obsessive level, and especially now that the NBA Finals are dying down, I have to prep that. Really been diving in, reading a lot of Athletic. Really do think the Athletic is one thing for me. As a lifelong content person, as a person that once ran Football Outsiders and led it to its best traffic and revenue year ever, even though it ended up dying shortly thereafter because overfunded startups, never a good thing. But point being, though, as somebody that's worked in the space that's tried to create good content, I really think the Athletic, even though they have been, I think, lost some assets compared to a few years ago, they really have drilled down, I think, on what works in terms of getting people this gambling kind of information, good training camp, OTAs, mini camp stuff throughout the entire cycle. Reporters sometimes make conjecture that is not really aligned with team stuff. They can throw you off the scent a little bit. But if you're following the practice reports, you're reading the daily articles and stuff, really in particular ones that focus on the offensive players. I think you can skip the ones about defensive players. It does feel a little bit like homework, but, would say that adding the Athletic as like a daily news source for me is one thing that for best ball has added a lot of value to like how I understand these things, understand team depth charts, and especially when you're doing it for multiple years in a row. This is my fourth year maxing of some of the largest tournaments in best ball. So, you kind of develop a good filter for news when you do it more as well. But anyway, we talked enough about news. All right, we have a 2-3-5-0. Does feel like RB would be nice here. Really not a great RB situation. We've got our Baltimore touchdown bet where we're basically not having Lamar, not having Zay Flowers. We could add Isaiah Likely onto that. I'm pretty cool with that. I mean, we needed a tight end eventually, so Isaiah Likely, first tight end off the board. Really would like to get an RB here. Rashad White has showed up to camp 10 pounds lighter, are the reports that are out there. Not sure if that's actually a great thing for him, given the fact that his big skill is being able to hold up in pass protection, and he doesn't. That's all he's got going for him. We got Mims here as a decent discount. I think we got to stick with RB. I am going to go Rashad White here. Ray Davis, a click you can also make, especially if you think the James Cook holdout somehow gets weird, maybe gets to a T. Higgins level where you're wondering, is this guy healthy and not playing? That's a possibility. You never know how guys negotiate, given some of the weird outliers we've seen in recent years. But Ray Davis, to me, is not a player I want to take over Rashad White, who's got potentially, if he's somehow better losing 10 pounds, maybe he actually takes some work away from Bucky again. But even if he's not, better, he's probably got all the contingent value in the world, because if Bucky goes down, worst case scenarios, it's like a split backfield with him and Sean Tucker. Best case scenario is Rashad White gets 75% of that backfield, and all of a sudden he's paying off, Bucky's ADP basically. Rashad White, to be clear, I think is awful. I didn't draft him at all last year because the price tag wasn't right. This year, though, the price tag's too cheap. Because he disappointed last year. It's one of those things in best ball where, like, year to year, this guy was disappointing at ADP last year. Oh, well, I guess that means now that we're not going to draft him at a reasonable ADP for what his role is. It's kind of what's happening to Rashad White this offseason so far. Team here, so far, we have Baker Mayfield, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams. So, again, pretty well-balanced start, I feel like, especially with the RBs for me. Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Devontae Smith, good top three here. Isaiah Likely, first tight end off the board, so we got to make up some volume here. Good news, it's 20-round drafts, so we can add 3-4 tight ends, not feel that bad about it. Jalen Waddle is our Tampa Bay stack bring back for week 17. David Montgomery, you got as a huge value. Justin Fields, pretty good value as well. Rashad Bateman, Rashad White, two different spellings of Rashad, but two Rashads I like quite a bit at their price tags. So I'm happy with the team. I think it is always a little bit of a different journey for me when I take deviations like your Derrick Henry early on, taking him in round 1 here. But I did punt Neighbors because of the Q tag, did get him back at 14. So I like how this worked out for me. I think in particular, this sort of shows, or I would hope shows, what I'm talking about with soaking up ADP value. Like, this team is a little bit more unique for the fact that I grabbed some pretty good ADP value. In particular, David Montgomery at 86. That's not one that happens too often. It should happen more often given the price tag you pay for Gibbs on the other side. Like, that kind of, it has to go in opposite ways. But that's that. Brent feels like he should have gone Higgins over Warren. Ended up getting missing out on Stroud when the Higgins drafter took him. Yeah, well, that's tough. I mean, on DraftKings, in particular, you got to be prepared to lose your QB at any situation. But yeah, if you make it easier for him, then where he gets a receiver, then he's actually feels like he's correlating, and he is, then you're going to increase your odds of getting sniped even more. But that's, it's the name of the game. Part of why, to me, too, when I saw Fields there, like 10 picks after ADP, it's like, okay, I could try to skim some other QB. But really, like, I don't have any great QB stacks left because I have a Philadelphia receiver, I have a Tampa Bay receiver that's already stacked up. I want to take Tua as well. And that's one rule of thumb to keep in mind, too. You can see that I do have Jalen Waddle here. I probably don't want Tua Tagovailoa. He's gone already anyway. But you don't want two QBs in the same Week 17 game, ideally. You want to have them represent 1, 2, 3 different game stacks with your QBs. Because that's your biggest shot of having upside. Capture one of those game environments where there's going to be 1, 2, max 4 games that have like 50, 60 fantasy or 60 real life point upside. So trying to corner the market on QBs in one situation is usually not the best. All right, 2, 4, 5, 1 here. And we've got unstacked Justin Fields. I do like Bryce Young, but I don't think we need him. I think Eckler makes this room better. And I think we're done at RB with that. Eckler was one of those guys that last year I was, down on conceptually because it seemed like he had hit the wall, but found efficiency again last year in Washington. And Washington's added nothing. So I'm happy to get him here. I don't hate Jalen McMillan. 5 spots after ADP. We have a Tampa Bay stack. Only Mike Evans in it. We'll go Jalen McMillan here. McMillan, I think, flashed pretty well last year. Had some issues in the beginning of the year. They really wanted to get him going in the beginning part of the season, and he wasn't able to kind of get the results they wanted. As a result, they bumped down the depth chart until basically all the injuries kicked in for Tampa Bay. But for McMillan, I think that he's a player that showed he can be a touchdown hound. Like, he can grab 2 scores in a game. That's a possibility. Overall, let's look at his numbers. Of course, all the data I cite, especially the EPA stuff, all Sports Info Solutions. So if you want to know where that is, you can get access to it there. So McMillan, a 0.09 EPA per target, should be better for kind of a boom bust player. 16.4% target per out run. 0.6 red zone targets a game is not bad. 0.9 deep targets a game, not bad. Really not a special player in terms of these numbers, but I think some of that is how shitty he was in the first half of the year. To me, he's likely to be an outside, secondary outside receiver to Mike Evans more than Egbuka is. Egbuka, I think, is just a pure slot play. And I think he's there mostly as contingent value for Chris Godwin because Chris Godwin, that athletic article I mentioned earlier, he talked at length about how he doesn't want to play anywhere besides the slot. He's found his best efficiency. He thinks he's at the best, of his career playing in the slot. He did have apparently a more serious injury than was reported on, did Chris Godwin, because he had to get a steel plate put into his fibula, I believe, because he broke his fibula and dislocated his ankle. That's why he hasn't been out there in minicamp and won't be out there at all realistically until training camp. But Egbuka, I just don't see having the ability to play outside as much as McMillan does. I certainly could be wrong about that because McMillan was also maybe more of a natural slot, and he did primarily use him as an outside receiver. But I think it's going to be Mike Evans, number 1, Godwin, number 2, or, 1A, 1B. And then I think you get third receiver who, in terms of production, I think is probably McMillan. K. Dotton could end up finishing ahead of him. I don't think that'd be a shocker, but I don't know. I like McMillan more than people do. Bryce Young fell to 180 in DK draft for me the other day. Had to scoop at that point. Bryce Young is a player where you do have the late stack partners if you want to go there. If Leggett falls in a room or Thielen, which does happen enough, even better. But Jatavian Sanders, the pathway for him has gotten more clear because Tommy Tremble had to get back surgery. So that was something where Tremble got decent money in the offseason that people were kind of surprised by, myself included. Because Jatavian Sanders, I thought, proved that he was going to be your alpha tight end. But a late Bryce Young, Jatavian Sanders combo, I think, looks good. And Bryce Young started to run a little bit more down the back half of the season last year. Overall, he finished with only 3 rushes a game. Would have thought that'd be higher. But a 0.3 EPA per rush, 33% of the rushing touchdowns. Bryce Young had a lot of the rushing touchdowns. Okay. That's touchdown equity for sure. No, Jimmy Horn would not be a play for me. It's the top 3. There's too much draft capital for McMillan. Leggett still has huge draft capital from last year. They want it to be the 1-2. Thielen is still held up incredibly well for his age, so I think he's your obvious number 3. Coker is going to be your backup to all 3 would be my guess. There's not room for anybody else to step up and produce there, I don't think. I'd be shocked. But, injuries happen. I guess maybe there's a chance you get the Juwan Jennings things, but it's not like Juwan Jennings is a unique situation for San Francisco where he overcame his, basically likelihood of not being involved in the offense last year because you had Pearsall hurt, not ready to go with the gunshot wound stuff. You had Ayuk being off in the beginning of the year. You had Debo being appreciably worse. So he kind of got a surprisingly good run out that wasn't there, but he was already in the system that spiked in the playoffs and all that. For Jimmy Horn, he's got to beat out all these guys straight up and be better than them, which I just don't think is very likely. But, if you're making late bets, if you take Jalen Coker, you should probably take whatever the alternative to Jalen Coker is because that's sort of how this works. Was a big learning point for me last year. I took a ton of Ben Sinnott because I was like, Washington players in particular, somebody's got to produce a tight end. Didn't take enough Zach Ertz because I was like, well, they just spent great draft capital on Ben Sinnott. Ben Sinnott ends up not seeing the field. Mason Taylor goes the pick before me because I'm not allowed to have joy in life. We'll take K. Dotton instead. Wanted to get Taylor and K. Dotton ideally to have 2 stacked up tight ends, but we'll survive. And again, Mason Taylor, dog shit target earner at LSU. So I'll stand by that in teams when I don't have him. In teams where I do have him, I'll go, well, that Mason Taylor is going to be a lot better as a pro. We got a little discount on Alec Pierce. I do think Alec Pierce works well for me in this kind of build where my receiver room is solid enough and he will give me some spike days for sure. So Alec Pierce, Pierce. You're it, baby. Now that we got no shot at Mason Taylor. The team so far is a 2-5-7-3 build. So 2 QBs, 5 running backs, 7 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. We got Baker Mayfield, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams. Again, balanced RB start makes me feel a little more comfortable on DraftKings. Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Devontae Smith. We have Isaiah Likely, Jalen Waddle as part of our Tampa Bay Week 17 bring back. We have David Montgomery, Justin Fields, Rashad Bateman, Rashad White, Austin Eckler. I think a pretty nice RB room given the top 2 guys should be mostly making the lineup there. McMillan, Kate Otten for our Tampa Bay stack, adding on top of that. And Alec Pierce, because he's really the only receiver in Indianapolis that does what he does. A guy will take the top off of the defense, something that he did really well last year. And Alec Pierce, too, had a lot more spike weeks than people realize. But Pierce, overall, 0.4 EPA per target. That is exactly where you want a kind of boom bust player to be. 2 deep targets a game, 0.3 EPA per target on those. Probably could have stood to be a little bit higher. And he's going into year 3, so he should be pretty close to his ceiling of performance overall. Still got 0.4 red zone targets a game as well. It's not bad for a guy who's really not getting those, kind of Devontae Adams short jump ball plays too often. So I like Alec Pierce here. I think he is a good click overall whenever you get him at ADP. He's your wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6. I feel okay about that. Diet Coker. In terms of diet, I don't think you're going to see a ton of them this year. I'd be surprised. Like Coker, really people got into early, and it's like I know pre-draft as well, pre-NFL draft best ball, which does exist. If you thought it was impossible to have more virginity in life, pre-NFL draft best ball, which I love, and one of the things I'm best at in best ball. It's there. The point being, a lot of people took Coker because they're like, well, he's going to be one of the top 3 receivers. And that assumption of the depth chart for a guy that had no draft capital coming in, with him being undrafted out of Holy Cross. He played okay last year, but like Thielen was also good. Leggett again is a 1st-round pick who has like the pro body type that you want to see get the work and fail more than you want to see Coker out there, would be my guess. He needs an injury. I think Coker would need to get there. The Ted McMillan, you're talking about a guy that should be about, in college, he's a 33%-ish target per out run guy. The pros, 25 to 30 would be my guess. It's a lot of targets that are not going to go Coker's way. Chunk, who loves college football DFS, so you might have more perspective on Coker. I think Coker's super overrated, and Thielen is 1 route away from a career-ending injury. I said that last year about the white boy, and he shoved it in my face. You're a white boy, aren't you, Chuck? I don't think you can call him the white boy. But yeah, I think that for Coker, if Thielen gets hurt, great. But Thielen, again, look at his numbers here. Thielen, a 0.47 EPA per target. That's crazy for an old slot, an old guy who used to be an outside receiver, had to be converted to slot because he had no juice left. 21% target per out run, definitely not where he was at the peak of his career, but still pretty good. Better than a guy like Jaden Reed, who people love taking left and right. Thielen, 0.8 red zone targets a game. That's in a good range as well. 1.3? No. Wait, did he get? No, DK Metcalf got 2.1. Adam Thielen got 1.2 deep targets a game, so that's throws 20-plus air yards. That's good usage. So I don't know why it would go away. He was good enough. Been losing our guy Bree, losing for 5 years in best ball and DFS betting against Thielen. He's been good. Look, I think we saw the downside a couple years ago where a lot of teams that were maybe not as good at wide receiver capital in best ball and also probably in your redraft leagues out there. A lot of people took Thielen as their receiver because he was kind of the boomer receiver pick to take after you loaded up on too many running backs early on. And he hit really hard in the first half of the year, and all those teams felt like geniuses. Then the back half of the year, he kind of showed his ass a little bit and fell off. That can absolutely happen with Thielen, especially when you have guys like Ted McMillan coming in who should be an elite target earner. So that's that. Excuse me, reverse racism. There you go. You're hating on your own, I guess, I think that's always gonna be allowed. Just have to give the caveats accordingly. We got 4 more rounds left here. Of course, DraftKings is 20-round draft. If you are new to the world of DraftKings best ball, make sure to download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app right now to draft your $20 best ball lineup. There is a link in the description if you want to go check it out. Basically, if you put in 1 entry in there, which is $20, you get a second entry for free right away. So that's 2 shots immediately at $15 million in total prizes, $2 million to first place. So one of the highest prizes you'll find in the best ball industry. So you check it out, play on DraftKings. A lot of improvements to the site this year. All right, we've got Juwan Johnson here. Again, just trying to get some good tight ends in because we got sniped on some correlation with Mason Taylor. So Juwan Johnson, one of those guys I take a lot on stream and in general because he is too cheap for his situation. Theo Johnson goes. He would have been a very nice tight end 4 for me, but we won't get that luxury. Do you think another Giant would not be crazy here at receiver, though? So I'm going to go Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton, a guy you've probably, I know you people have pointed out in the chat. I do take Slayton a good amount late. He's undervalued. Again, another guy who is just involved a bunch as your primary outside receiver for the Giants. Really surprised he got paid again, but it seems like the Giants have fallen out of love with Jalen Hyatt. That's a big part of that so far. But to me, Slayton just getting the opportunity that he'll have because of how much gravity a player like Malik Neighbors is going to take in. Because Malik Neighbors last year had about a 30% target per out run, I believe. Your Neighbors 32% target per out run, one of the highest marks in the league for a guy getting actual work. He and Drake London, two of the guys that are up there besides Puka Nacua. That's really your top 3 in terms of receivers. Yeah, but for Malik Neighbors, basically with him taking another leap this year, being so good and also being a guy that the Giants have shown, they're willing to feed at like a comically high level. I think it's going to be a good sign for Slayton overall. And again, like same thing with Neighbors, you have a lot of outs this year for QB play with the Giants where you have Russell Wilson likely starting the year. You have Jameis as your maybe backup. Jackson Dart, if he's ready, he'll be the backup from day one. But then even if Dart gets hurt, you have Jameis there as well. You have 3 outs for QBs that are going to be more vertically minded. And in particular, the Jameis and Dart side of things, Dart, absolute gunslinger at Ole Miss. I think when he hits in the pros, I think he's going to hit in a major way. Might not be this year, but I do think in general, if he's in dynasty for you, like get Jackson Dart if you have Malik Neighbors especially. If you get Jameis out there and you get that glow up that he gave Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore and Njoku at times as well, you got a lot of outs for the Giants receivers, and especially too, the team's not going to be a world beater defensive. They should be better, certainly. They've added enough pieces on defense with Thibodeau and with Abdul Carter that like they should be better, but they're probably still not going to be good. Secondary is still not good. Harvey has to drop 20s of picks. I mean, we still haven't seen Dobbins sign there. So, there is a difference between getting courted by a team, meeting with a team. As Gabe Davis has shown us a few times, like there is a difference between that and actually signing with a team. So I think you keep taking Harvey where he is. I mean, and if Harvey is the player that people think he is that ADP, he should. Oh, did he just sign? Did he sign while I'm on stream? Why does this always fucking happen? All right. Well, I trust you on that, Chunk. Let's see. Funny bit though. All right. I'm checking my Discord because I do get the news alerts in those channels. J.K. Dobbins signs 1 year, $5.25 million. Harvey's going to fall a lot. Again, if he was worth that ADP, and yeah, Chunk, you're on top of it. If he's worth that ADP, like he should be able to beat out J.K. Dobbins. Like I think with where Dobbins was last year, where he got there largely because the Chargers are pot committed to feeding him the ball. Like I think Harvey's an okay player. He would not have been my top running back off the, in the second tier of RBs that went there. Just not a super high avoided tackle rate guy. And he also didn't play the highest competition in college. So that would kind of give me 2 dings against him. I think it hurts an estimate. Yes, I think fucking Chunk. Right, you're really in my brain today. I think it does hurt estimate a good amount because I thought there's a shot estimate could be the goal line back there. I suppose he still can, but I think you're likely going to see like a 3-headed backfield, which would have been my concern for Harvey anyway. Like Harvey to pay off that ADP has to be involved, for 15 touches a game, and I'm not sure that's the case. I would guess now you probably get like 10 for him, 10 to 12 and a half for him. I would say similar, slightly lower amount for Dobbins, still a few for Estime and like power situations. That'd be my guess. All right, we got 3 tight ends. I think we need 1 more here. I think we can take a big swing. Elijah Arroyo, a guy that was an elite pass catcher in college, has some shots to be useful. Doesn't correlate with anything we did, but that's what it is. Alan Lazard goes. I'm gonna go We go Josh Reynolds here, our other Jets receiver. Our first player stacked up with Justin Fields. Josh Reynolds signed this offseason. And I do think with Lazard not having that Rodgers connection anymore, I think Josh Reynolds being a player who maybe has a shot to hit as your number 2 for the Jets seems like a possibility. Also a decent possibility he'll just be number 2 for the Jets, and that would not be shocking. My final team here, though, made good time on DraftKings today. Jesus. Sorry for jipping you guys. Do you have any questions? We can't say that word. Sorry for ripping you guys off on time frame here. But the draft ends when it ends. So if you got some questions, drop in chat. Happy to stay a few more minutes. The team here, a 2-5-9-4. We got Baker Mayfield, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams. So again, really love the RB start here at decent ADPs. Didn't have to go nuts reaching for these guys too. Like the balance we have. Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Devontae Smith at receiver. So we got receiver looking pretty good overall, even though we did not get one of the super duper elite guys theoretically. The Neighbors certainly can hit that tier this year, would be my hope. Tight end, Isaiah Likely. I think tight ends where we suffered the most, but that's why we took 4. Jalen Waddles or Tampa Bay bring back. David Montgomery, 20-pick ADP value. Did not see that happen very often, but it's nice to get him in the 80s. Justin Fields, that was a nice value as well. Rashad Bateman, Rashad White, 2 players that I think fit well for these kind of builds. Austin Eckler closes out our RB room. Then we got Jalen McMillan as part of the Tampa Bay stack. K. Dotton as part of our Tampa Bay stack. Alec Pierce, Juwan Johnson. I didn't do enough to get Jets bringbacks. I don't really think I need to for that game necessarily. Jets New England in week 17. But I stacked up Reynolds. We got Darius Slayton, got Arroyo, got Juwan Johnson. I'm happy with this team. I really do think on DraftKings in particular, I think that there's a good vibe to building a team, getting your early RBs in, making sure, if you hit your wide receiver pockets well enough. I think the only thing that felt not great here was tight end, but you can live off of 4 late tight ends on DraftKings pretty easily in a 20-round draft. So I'm happy with how that went out. Guys, appreciate all you guys watching. So the goal is going to be on Thursday at 3 p.m. to get our pal Laffy in here. I've not talked to Laffy on stream in a while, but very excited to hear his takes. He also maxed out a lot of the best ball tournaments last year as well. So he's a guy that's been more in the streets than you might realize because it's not been his content focus. So very excited to try to get him on next week. Make sure to click the link in the description, guys. Go check out DraftKings Daily Fantasy app right now. Draft your $20 best ball lineup. Again, it's a shot at $15 million in total. $2 million in first place. Your top 10 finishers all win at least $100,000. It's a really nice prize setup this year for DraftKings. And then when you do draft that first entry, you get a second one for free as well. So that's 2 shots at $15 million total on DraftKings. If you download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app right now, click the link in the description, go over there and get that deal for yourself. But really the big thing, you get those shots of big money without having to worry about your lineup again after you draft it. So there's good stuff for you on DraftKings. Really think they're doing a good job in best ball this year, and happy to be doing a part of it as well as this stochastic deal they have going on. And make sure to check out MLB Live Before Lock later today. I think that's the only show coming up. And gamble responsibly, whatever. I don't know. It's all that shit. And go check me out on my @SplashPlayPod channel. Usually after these streams, I do hop onto there, do a second draft on a different PPR site. So I'm going to go link this. I like the video. I can do that, right? I'm good at linking things. If you want to go join me on this video next, I'll be drafting over there as well, another best ball team. You can check out my other channel. I do drafts on all the big best ball platforms on there as well. So if you want some more from me, check it out. And link in the description too for my OddsShopper Tails package. If you want to get in there, get an access to my rankings. Also, you get access to my Discord in particular, where we talk about football all the time. Whenever there's news that matters, I try to give my take on it, talk about data. When people have questions, I make sure to pull up my advanced analytics stuff. And, it's a team effort here for best ball, even though obviously at the end of the day, we're all alone. We are all alone. But shout out to all you guys hanging out. I will see you guys again soon. Enjoy your days. Good luck. Come back to Thursday at 3 p.m. and watch LMB Live for a lot coming up a little bit, guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.